All right, good morning, guys. It is Thursday, November 6th, 2025. This is pre-market prep. And let's talk about yesterday. Yesterday was interesting. So I realized when I went back through and I looked at my video, I spent a whole lot of time yesterday talking about the range expansion option and not a lot about the upside X option. So, we did not get range expansion yesterday. I probably have some recency bias because every day has been a range expansion day. And so I kind of mentioned this. I kind of gave this a nod at the end of the video. So we'll talk about that in a second, but we'll just kind of talk about a couple things that happened yesterday. So my streak is broken. We didn't get our dominant prediction or probability, which was range expansion. We got the secondary, which was upside X, at least in ES. And we'll take a look at this. Okay, so this was our data from yesterday. And, when I was kind of going through and explaining, what was happening, it wasn't until really, I think, the very end here. Let me see if right here at the end of the video where I kind of talked about the importance of the midline. When we have a situation where we have data that looks like this, where we got range expansion as the dominant, and then we have something else or other things, we have to take into account what's going to happen around the midline. Because if the midline never breaks, then the likelihood of this range expansion happening is it's not going to happen. Like, it has to break in order for the range expansion to happen. So the play is you still kind of work with a range expansion option until you see any sort of hold or a failure of the bears or the bulls to kind of pass through and kind of close beyond this midline. Then you kind of know, okay, wait, maybe I've got my secondary option going on here. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. So if we take a look at yesterday's price action, I'm just going to bring this up. Where was yesterday's price action? Okay, so right here. So yesterday's price action is we had, so we were thinking range expansion, right? We were thinking this was going to happen here. And the midline becomes super important. And just notice, even though we kind of poked below, we never could close. I know this is a terrible line, but even if you draw the line straight across correctly, we never actually had a close below the midline. This midline held perfectly. And then we get this move right here. And at this point, you're probably okay thinking, unless I get another strong move back down here, then now we have our secondary model to look at. And which was, if we come back, take a look at our data. We'll come back here and take a look at our data. That's not the one I want to see. Come back here. Yeah, our secondary data was, that's not correct either. Here we go, upside X. So, and that is exactly the model that we ended up getting. And then we kind of got to move after that. So, yeah, I probably spent too much time yesterday talking about this range expansion and not the other scenarios that could happen, because we do want to make sure that we're prepared for other scenarios. I think I mentioned that before. All right. Let's look at today. One of the unusual things is the last 4 out of 5 days, we've had range contraction setups. So range contraction is when you have the ADR or Asian session. That IDR range is completely within. So here we go. This is the ADR session. It's completely within the prior RDR session. And that's what's called a range contraction. And, we can get a big move out of the range contraction, or we can get this kind of rotational effect inside the range contraction. So it's one of those two. And we've had a number of days, I don't see this very often. So this is today, range contraction. Yesterday, we did not have range contraction. Monday, we had it. Last Friday, we had it. Last Thursday we had it. Notice how it's just like in this case, like we never, we popped out once or twice, from the original, but like notice we just stayed right here. We just didn't do anything. Really interesting price action till we kind of popped out of here. So we do kind of have this effect that's happening. Really interesting, fairly unusual to have this many in a row. Range contraction is not necessarily a common pattern, but it's common enough to be able to know how to trade it. So today we have range contraction. We have also kind of this really narrow overnight session. And in fact, in NQ, we have what's called it's almost like range contraction. So we're really kind of contracting from a price action perspective until we kind of got this move out. Let's just focus today on ES. So let's kind of bring up ES for today and bring this up. It's ES Thursday. We have range contraction, right? And then between ADR and ODR, this is actually a downside X plus with a long confirmation. Okay, so we're gonna set this up. We have downside X plus, long true, and we have range contraction. We have 17 days in our history on Thursdays. We're opening above, and we kind of have this duality of one or the other. We're pretty much split between either upside X plus or range expansion. If I take Thursday off, it's a little bit more dominant on upside X plus. And that's kind of what I'm expecting. So again, if we never breach the IDR, range expansion is never going to be on the table. If we do, then range expansion becomes a little heavier, right? And then we got to look at the midline. Okay, so for now, what we're looking at is an upside X plus. Okay, so if we come here, let's just draw this out. We're looking at more like an upside X plus model. I'm going to do something different so we don't get confused at a lot of the stuff. 930. Upside X plus. Okay, that's our dominant model. And we need to pay attention to what happens here at the IDR high, if that gets breached, and then this midline as well, which they're pretty close together. That is not a lot of distance between the two. So if we kind of come down and breach the IDR high, it's probably likely we're going to take out the midline as well. So that's what we're looking for, is a move that looks something like that. Now, this could, when we get this kind of distance from the ODR high like this, we might form where the UXP, we might form from top down, or we might form from bottom up. If we get a nice move during this kind of transition period, then we can form something like this. And then we can kind of expect something like this where either we kind of tap this or maybe break out, break back in. So like we've got other scenarios as we get closer to this level, which is our range contraction high. Based on what's happened in the last week, I don't know. We could take off and kind of like go back the other side. We could fail right here. I'm not really sure, but a lot's going to depend on what happens on how this upside X plus forms. If it forms from bottom down, there's a good chance that, we're just going to, maybe come back down here like this. So I'm going to leave room and space for allowing the open to kind of develop how it's going to open. I'm going to lean a little bit more toward an upside X plus model and watch what happens when things get closer to the range contraction areas. So that's kind of the play for today. NQ, messier, a little bit messier just because we have this range contraction here. We didn't quite have a range contraction here between these two. I drew this out anyway because it's pretty close. But in our data, if we just take a look at our data for NQ, we're going to see contraction, long, true. So 17 years of data, there's only 32 times, and we're a little bit more dominant on UXP and range expansion. So about the same as ES, right? Where we're a little bit more dominant on the upside X plus, and with the possibility that we have a range expansion day as well. So it's going to be interesting. Not necessarily a ton of clarity for me, other than I kind of suspect we're going to have something that looks like this, and whether that forms from bottom up or top down, and what we do around kind of these edges is going to be really interesting to see. So, all right, that's all I got for today. And I don't know if you can hear it, my voice. I got my allergies coming. It's Austin. We have cedar fever here. So that's all I got for today. And hope you guys have an amazing trading day. Make good